It is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. This is another edition of Baseball Today, presented to you by a friend over at Factors. That is not my regular dude. That is an awesome dude. Stephen Brault in for Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan along for the ride as well. Braulty, thanks for filling in. You know, Plouffe's got one of those early starts for Twins broadcasts, plus he's doing Talking Baseball, so he's a little jammed today.
How dare he have responsibilities, you know? And, you know, to put your show on the shelf to do these other things is just so disappointing to hear. No, seriously, hope the best for him. I tell you what, man, I've listened to him call those Twins games. He clearly really enjoys it, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And I think today he's just doing the pre and post. Not that it's just doing it, because that's what you do on a daily basis for Pittsburgh. But today he's not going to be in the booth. So yeah. I think that's coming sometime in the near future. Hopefully they slide you in for a game or two.
Hey, you never know. We'll see. It's been a really good time doing the pre and post game though. This Pirates season has already been quite a ride, including last night's game, which was insane. But yeah, dude, I'm loving it. It's great. I've never paid this close attention to the, world of baseball before in such a specific way. I've always been, playing, so then that kind of takes precedence over everything else. But man, I'm loving it. It's great. I feel like I know way more about baseball than I ever did, so that's cool.
We will talk about your beloved Pirates and Oneil Cruz in particular in just a minute. But first, we start off with the tip of the cap with Northeast Ohio's own and Cleveland Browns all-pro cornerback Denzel Ward throwing out the first pitch of the Guardians game on Tuesday. So he busts out a pen, does a little bit of the Terrell Owens, let's sign the ball, and then instead of throwing it directly to our guy Austin Hedges, he throws it 30 rows up into the seats, which everybody's like, what the heck is he doing? Well, he had just signed the baseball, and he wanted to give it away. I think this might be the wave of the future.
I think this is genius. First of all, if you're throwing out a first pitch, I think doing something to make it memorable, no matter what it is a great idea. But also, yeah, I think you're going to see this happen more often because there's somebody out there who's very happy that they just got a Denzel Ward signed baseball, because how many signed baseballs has Denzel Ward even done? You know what I mean? So it's just pretty cool in general. Also hilarious, like it's a first pitch. It doesn't have to be serious. So I'm big fan. Great idea.
And on top of that, there's nothing worse than being a pro athlete in another sport and showing that you cannot throw. Like John Wall played for the Washington Wizards, among other teams. This is a guy that was a point guard, great shooter, tremendous athlete, threw out one of the worst first pitches. We're like, geez, oh man, Denzel Ward saves himself perhaps the embarrassment of not being able. I don't know if he can or can't, but
I like the old-timey Bugs Bunny windup, really getting his shoulder going and then just using the momentum. Can you imagine if he didn't get it over the back net, though, after doing that? So, I mean, job accomplished. I think it's great. I love it.
All right, let's get on to our first question of the day. Two of the most exciting young players in the game, they took center stage on Tuesday. You had a front row seat for what Oneil Cruz did. He became the first person in the StatCast era to have multiple hits over 121 miles an hour, including the fastest one we've seen of over 121. And then he had a third one over 115 as the Pirates erased a 4-run ninth-inning deficit, beat the Giants in extra innings. In the meantime, in the middle of the country, Bobby Witt continues his MVP push. 2 more homers, including one that went 468, tied a career high with 6 ribs overall. Now, I want to ask you, whose skill set would you rather have? Because that's different than who would you rather have in terms of a player, because I think right now Bobby Witt is kind of further along in his development. But whose skill set would you rather have between Cruz and Witt?
So this is a fun little one because I get to watch Oneil Cruz every day. And so I've seen him do some fantastic things. And I've seen some, big mistakes. The guy, like you said, he's not quite as far in the development as Bobby Witt. He missed all of last year. When it comes to just sheer insane bat speed and, being able to hit the ball harder than anybody else, that it's hard to beat Oneil Cruz. Stanton is the only guy that has a faster bat speed. I love those stats they put on Baseball Savant, by the way. I think it's really fun. But for now, I would still choose Bobby Witt because I think everybody comes up growing up and wants to be the guy that is good at everything in baseball, right? You don't really, of course, sometimes you pretend when you're a kid playing wiffle ball to be, a big power hitter. But most of the time you're thinking about, you want to be the guy who's the star, who does everything. Not that Oneil Cruz isn't necessarily going to be that. But right now, I mean, Bobby Witt, you can't print out his baseball savant page or you're going to run out of red ink. I mean, it's just everything is right at the top of the league. The guy doesn't really have any weaknesses. His fielding value, his running value, but because he's the fastest person in baseball, by the way, this season. And his batting value are all insane. He can do literally everything. And that is just such a cool thing to have. I feel like you never hear 5-tool player anymore. I don't know if that's just a word that is, or a phrase that has kind of gone out of use. But that's what I think of when I see Bobby Witt Jr. He doesn't really have any weaknesses. And the fact that he can get so much power, he's not a big guy, but I mean, 468 is a bomb. That's a big boy bomb. I think I'd have to go with him because I think Oneil Cruz is going to do some amazing things. There's a chance that once he kind of figures out the more reliable contact and launch angle, we might see him hit a ton of home runs, a ton. But I think Bobby Witt Jr., if he is able to stay healthy and continue through this career, he's only 23 years old. I mean, you could see him end up being one of the greatest guys, that we ever got to watch play. So I think that that's kind of where I'm at right now. It could change as Oneil Cruz maybe gets a little bit more polished. But for right now, man, being Bobby Witt Jr. would be pretty cool because there's really nothing that you're looking for and going, I wish he did this better. Like literally nothing. So yeah, what about you? Well, who would you choose?
Well, yeah, I think that you go with Witt right now, but the tricky part of the question is saying skill set because we're so curious about what Oneil Cruz is going to turn into. And it is unfair to say, well, who would you rather have? Even though that's kind of what it says on our screen, it really is the skill set that we're talking about. And the reason I bring that up is because of the number of pitches that guy screams at more than 110 miles an hour. You just sit there and you say, God, if he can figure it out, he's a dude that could hit 40 home runs.
Oh, more than that. I mean, I'm pretty sure his exit velo right now is almost 96 miles an hour average. Like, it's insane how hard he hits baseballs. He'll have 3 strikeouts, and then but the 2 balls that he does hit in play are 115, like almost every day. It's insane to watch.
And even though he's older than Bobby Witt Jr., he's still kind of an infant when it comes to this part of the game, this stage of the game. He hasn't played a full season of Major League Baseball. He's played under 150 games so far. Last year, we've seen Witt develop from his first year where his OPS was in the 700s to last year where it's in the 800s, and right now it's in the 900s. Now, I don't know if it's going to stay there all year. You're talking about elite of the elite, long season, everyday shortstop, plus he's going to take a beating with sliding into bases like he does, all that sort of stuff. If he's mid to high 800s, that is remarkable and good enough to, in my opinion, keep him in the MVP race. But I just am so curious every time I watch Oneil Cruz play, like just the throws from shortstop. So much of his game is raw and undefined at this point, but you would salivate if you were a talent evaluator over what he brings.
It's insane. So he'll have some plays where he kind of bobbles the ball a little bit at shortstop, and he has this extremely quick move, like throwing motion. That's his release time is incredibly fast for a guy his size. So he's quick as well as just giant and a fast runner. So yeah, like you said, it's kind of an unfair question for me because I watch this guy play every day. And of course I would want, are you kidding me? I could never hit a ball like that. I was a contact hitter. I could get up to 95, 5 times in my life. But this guy's throwing 95 across the diamond on a quick toss. You know what I mean? It's pretty insane. I would say when it comes to just straight up skill set, I would say Bobby Witt Jr. just because I like the all encompassing, very, very good at everything. But when it comes to just sheer potential, I mean, it's hard to find anybody that you can point at and be like, this guy could be better than Oneil Cruz could be. You know what I mean? So, man, I can't. I love watching him. So that's all.
I'll leave it with this. Royals teammate Alec Marsh said of Witt, he's unbelievable. He's a generational talent. You think you'd get used to being around it every day, and then he does something new that you haven't seen, and it's just wow. The wow factor is unbelievable. Let's move on to another guy who is in the AL MVP discussion along with Bobby Witt, and that would be Kyle Tucker. Another huge night for him. 2 more homers. He scored the game-winning run, as well as the Astros continued their surge toward the top of the American League West. Tucker, of course, is a free agent after next season. So after 2025, Houston has never given out a contract worth more than $165 million. Do you think he ends up staying?
Okay. No, I don't. I hope he does. I think it would be a cool story to kind of, it seems like the next logical step, right? We all were talking about at the beginning of the season, off season, where the Astros going to extend Bregman. And that's kind of, that talk has just kind of ended at this point. And now it's becoming Kyle Tucker. And so now everybody's going back and looking. It's like, oh yeah, Kyle Tucker's been like really good, consistently very good. And this year he's just going insane. But he hits lefties and righties so well. He hits for power. He hits for contact. He plays pretty good defense. He's not slow. I mean, he's a really good player, especially when it comes to just hitting the ball. He's a guy that any franchise will be really happy to have. He's only 27 right now, and he could be their next franchise player. The problem is if they're going to try to extend him, I'm sure they probably already have. But like, they're probably trying to throw numbers at him to extend him. And there's just no way at this point. Why would you, if you got to get through another year and a half and you go to free agency, that guy could be looking at buku bucks, like insane amounts of money if he's able to continue what he's doing right now and do it next year as well. So should they? Yes. But will they? I don't know. I mean, you get Verlander off that payroll. That's going to help a lot. And then, you still have Altuve that you're paying, but it's not crazy. I think overall the Astros would be able to afford it, but you just don't see them doing that big spending like that. They like bringing guys up, and then so it'll be interesting to see. I think they should. I don't think you should let that guy go because he could be the middle of your lineup for a very long time if he's able to, stay healthy and everything. And from what I've seen, he seems like he will be able to. So, but I don't think they will. I think they'll try, but I don't think it'll work out.
So he is the perfect guy to build around. He's going to be 28 by the time he's a free agent. He does everything. He plays defense well. He runs the bases, which is pretty remarkable for a guy his size. He is now, and he's improved as a hitter. He is spraying the ball all over the field. Driving the ball the opposite way this year at a 36% clip. Coming into this, actually overall in his career, 23% clip. So you're talking about maturing as a hitter, getting better as a hitter, making adjustments as a hitter, which is what this sport is all about. You can tell us that. So he's evolving as a hitter. He's never been a huge strikeout guy, right around, 90, mid-90s on a year. This season, he's got more walks than strikeouts. So you are talking about a guy who, in my opinion, keeps going up. The arc of a career usually goes like this. I don't even think that he's at the apex yet.
No, he's still on this part.
Right. And so now the other part, Astro fans are going to yell at us saying, well, of course he'd want to stay. Well, I get it. But if somebody else is going to offer you $80 to $100 million more, you have to listen to that sort of stuff.
Right.
Even if you were a top 10 draft pick like he was by the Astros. Jim Crane is as involved as any owner on the baseball side of things. He played collegiately. He understands the sport. He is in on all the meetings. And he is a guy that has made a lot of tough decisions in terms of watching George Springer, Carlos Correa, Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole all walk out the door. Most franchises could not sustain that. The Astros have been able to do it. And with this one, I think he's going to draw a line in the sand if he wants to continue to be the owner long term. There's a possibility that he might want to get out, sell at a high, say it's been a remarkable run, ink Kyle Tucker to a $250 million deal with it backloaded and say that could be somebody else's financial responsibility. That's one possibility I see.
I mean, the interesting thing with the Astros, they came into the season with like a really low-ranked prospect system, right? Their minor league system is not very strong, which is kind of weird because we remember, the Astros being, all their guys coming up and working, and that could still happen. Guys get better, and these players could develop into, really solid major leaguers. But I mean, you have to think, what are they looking for? Because if they're looking for a rebuild. Like if the rest of the season doesn't go well, and all of a sudden the Astros are pivoting to a rebuild because they have older guys and they need to build their minor league system, then you could see it changing where Kyle Tucker is intentionally traded, because if he keeps doing what he's doing next All-Star break, the amount of talent you could get back for Kyle Tucker would be insane. So it kind of depends on what the Astros are doing, I think. I think they will try to extend him, especially this offseason, try to get him before he gets to free agency. But if they can't come to a deal and then they're not good next year, it all of a sudden becomes really hard, because we just saw it with the Angels, where it's like, do you go for it even though maybe you need that extra help in the minor leagues? So I mean, it brings a lot of questions, and I think the performance of the Astros is a big part of it, and they've been performing very well recently. So you never know.
My gut feeling is that no, he doesn't stay. But I told you the plan where I think he could stay, and that's if Jim Crane eventually decides to get out and move on from being the owner of the Houston Astros. All right, folks, have you checked the calendar? Warmer, sunnier days are calling. In fact, across the Midwest and the East Coast, they might even already be here. So you need to fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals. They are dietitian approved, and the thing I love about them, they are ready to go in 2 minutes. You just take that fork, you pop right through the wrap. You stick it in the microwave, 2 minutes and 2 seconds, because I'm kind of weird. I have to set the timer on that. You're ready to go. They got 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, so you always have new flavors to explore. So make your day delicious. From breakfast to dessert, you'll stay fueled with the easy, nutritious options. I love it for the middle of the day. I've told you when I haven't ordered my Factor meals and it's like lunchtime or so, I pop open the fridge. I'm like, what the heck is going on in here? And then I grab something from the pantry I shouldn't be putting in this temple right now. So head on over to factormeals.com/baseball50. Use the code baseball50 to get half off your first box, plus another 20% off your next month. That is the code baseball50 at factormeals.com/baseball50. Get half off the first box, 20% off the next month while your subscription is active. Your belly will say thank you very much. We continue on, and I'm going to guess your dog is chewing on a toy. Right? You can't hear me? You can't hear me? Uh-oh. You can't hear me? Oh, for goodness sakes. That's a problem. Oh, now can you hear me, Steven?
I can hear Dan.
Oh, you can hear Dan, but you can't hear me. Oh, gosh. Well, we're going to have to figure this out in a second. This is called live YouTubing. Let's see here. Yeah. Why don't you... Let's see here. Try and text. I got you, Dan. And he can hear. This is great, everybody. So Stephen Brault can hear our producer, Dan, but he can't hear me. So let's try this. All right. And unplug your earbud or refresh your screen. Oh, this is going to be awesome. All right. So Brault's going to go away for a second. And in the meantime, I'm going to tell everybody about the next story we've got, if you don't mind. Josh Hader, his limited availability in recent years kind of made, oh, is he back? I see him.
It was weird. I could see you still, and then you disappeared, and then I just couldn't hear you. So I'm sorry, but I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, that was remarkably well done. You know, we very rarely have technical difficulties on this show, but with you, it's happened twice. Once when Plouffe was here, and once that. What's going on, funny guy?
Yeah, maybe it's me. I don't know. I'll tell you what, though. I could still see you and hear you a little bit at times. So I understand this is kind of a hard thing to deal with, but I missed what you said, and I feel really bad about it because it seemed really interesting.
Yeah, basically all you need to do is just go order Factor food. That's what you missed. So go. You know, that's all you need to do.
Okay,
just
good.
And you'll feel better about life. I want to get on to the Josh Hader story. In recent years in Milwaukee and then in San Diego, we had heard whispers about the limited availability. Well, Buster Olney of ESPN kind of took a deeper dive into this, saying that Hader's agent Jeff Berry came up with an actual set of rules to keep Hader's workload in check after he lost his arbitration hearing in the middle of his stay in Milwaukee. Berry had created 3 rules. He wouldn't pitch more than 2 days in a row. He would not pitch more than 3 outs in a single appearance. He would pitch only in safe situations or when the score was tied. This was all to get Josh Hader to free agency in a healthy manner. He ended up signing a $95 million free agent deal with the Houston Astros. Do you think that more players, particularly overused relievers, should start limiting their availability this way?
I mean, the concept is great, but I mean, look, the truth is if you are a star, if you are the best, you're going to be able to do things that other people cannot. Most guys, you have to remember, most relievers are guys who were starters at some point and then it didn't work out and they're making it to the big leagues and they're trying to be, a dude in the bullpen. And you even have to work your way up that a lot of times. And so part of that is getting used a lot. And Josh Hader it was a different level. Like, this is why I think for Hader, it was so important and specific because yes, it was about keeping health, but also it was about, he lost arbitration because he was not considered a closer, which is not fair. But that's because I went and looked through his 2018 and 2019 seasons. Okay. It's insane the amount he was pitching. So he had 23 appearances in 2018 that were at least 2 innings. 23. Okay. He threw 81 innings as a reliever in 56 appearances or something like that. He got 7th in Cy Young voting that year, which is crazy. But from August 29th on, he had a 6.19 ERA. So it did end up taxing him. And it builds on you, man, especially that amount of innings throwing that many times. And he was throwing sometimes the 8th and 9th, but he was throwing the 5th and 6th sometimes too. And it all depended on the way that counsel was deeming whatever was a leverage inning. If that mattered at the time, that's how it would work. And 2019 is very similar. He got 75 innings the next year and 66 appearances. So it's 61 appearances. So I understand it for Josh Hader. I think it would be hard for most other people to be able to really justify having this because relievers are not used more than they used to be. It's actually quite the opposite. If you go look at guys who threw back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, those relievers, you didn't have many, and they would throw 4 times in a row. They would, this was not unusual, but they also threw differently most of the time. This is different. We just saw Brash go down with TJ, and that guy spins his slider at like 4,000 RPM or something like that, and he got 72 innings last year. Like, that's going to be really hard to sustain. So I mean, when it comes down to will you be able to, I think you kind of have to earn it. I think you have to show, you're this guy and, you're going to be a closer and you will only be a closer. But it's really hard to imagine, like somebody who's not on a big contract or somebody who isn't known as the best of the best going, hey, here are the rules my agent is saying for me. And your manager is going to go, nah, what are you going to do? Just sit there and not pitch? You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird back and forth. So I like the idea. I do. I like keeping people healthy. That's really nice. But Hader's such an extreme example that it made sense. And you don't really see many people being used like that.
I'm not going to say he's one of one that could do this, but he's one of very few.
Yeah.
Right? You can only make demands when you have an exclusive skill set. And there just aren't that many guys that could do it. I understand the philosophy, and I back players on this because I do think that the arbitration system it's more than wonky. It's the wrong direction when it comes to relievers and how we value them. Like, we might value them as baseball fans, and even baseball executives understand the importance of all these guys, but the arbitration system has not caught up at all. And if you go look at the number of guys who are in the top 10 in each league in appearances, how many of those guys have already hit free agency? How many of them have found money? Very few of them. And so this could end up costing them their career in terms of how much they end up being used, what their durability is like, because they all want to hit free agency. And yes, some guys do, find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow as setup men. It does happen, but you got to get there healthy or it's not going to work. Craig Counsell, who was Hader's manager at the time, was brought into the meeting, I believe, with David Stearns, with Jeff Berry, the agent, with Josh Hader, and they all sat down, and Counsell was like, Yeah, I get it. Part of that was that the guy nearly played 20 years. A huge part of it was that he was a viable part of the players' union. And so he understood what Josh Hader was doing. And he said, listen, in the end, it ended up working out just fine. Now, with San Diego, we did hear some rumblings the last few years, particularly from Bob Melvin. You know, they were like, how many times did he have to step in front of a microphone and say, well, he wasn't available, or this is what we're dealing with? He never connected the dots for us specifically, but we kind of knew that Hader was and his camp were calling the shots. I don't have a problem with it. I understand why Padres fans hated it at the time, or maybe Brewers fans hated it at the time, but this guy's got to look out for himself and his family.
I mean, look out for yourself in a lot of ways, because it's not just like he was being asked to do things that nobody really has been asked to do. Like you're expecting this guy to go out and give you 2 1/3 innings to finish a game, and then 3 days later to do it again. That's a really hard ask to do that over a season. And this was when we talk about Josh Hader now, we think of Josh Hader, the closer. People don't remember Josh Hader, the middle guy, this middle / setup / closer, where he did everything, and it was always multiple innings. And I don't know if you remember this, but every team started to try to find their Josh Hader. All of a sudden, everybody wanted their relievers to go multiple innings, and it didn't last, one, because most of the time it doesn't work, because you need, like, the whole specialty of a reliever should be you are out of the game before you have a chance to ruin it, right? And starters, you're kind of expected, you're going to give up runs. As a reliever, your goal is to never give up runs. Josh Hader was able to go multiple innings often, even sometimes facing hitters a second time, and still not give up any runs. And that's really, really impressive to be able to do that consistently. So, yeah, I like you said, I don't know if he's necessarily one of one, but there are not many guys who would be able to get away with this, especially with now how consistent it is, the velocity is, right? Relievers in AAA are also throwing 99. Relievers in college are throwing 99 miles an hour now. Paul Skeens is throwing 102 as a starter. So, like, it's I don't know. It's hard to imagine this working other than for, like, the elite guys. And there'll have to be a reason for it first. The manager would have to try to use them in all these other situations, or use them too often. And you just don't really see that often anyway, because managers don't want to hurt their guy either. You know what I mean? So I don't think it'll be a problem. I do think it's a good thing that he did it, though, because it was clearly necessary.
Yep. All right, let's do this one pretty quickly. Opposite stories for starting pitchers. You got Ranger Suarez continued his historic run, 7 innings, a 1-run ball. He's the first player since the Hall of Famer Juan Marichal in 1966 to start a season 9-0 with a sub-1.5 ERA. Meanwhile, former ERA champion Kyle Hendricks, he's been banished to the pen after a horrific start. His ERA is over 10.5. Which of those two stories is more surprising for you?
The surprising one is Suarez. And not that I didn't think he was good. I've always thought he was good, but to watch him do what he's doing, the most surprising thing to me, sinker pitchers in general have high ground ball rates and high exit velo against. That is how it works, because sinkers are not meant to throw off your timing, right? They're meant to get ground balls. So a lot of times you get a high velo. Like Pirates just faced Logan Webb yesterday. He's a good example. Gives up pretty hard contact, but a lot of ground balls. So that's what you're sacrificing it for. Ranger Suarez has the mix. He gives up a lot of ground balls, and people do not hit the ball hard off of him either. And so that combination of things is why he's being so successful. And I mean, if you watch him pitch, you're going to think, why is this guy so good? And I'll tell you why. He doesn't complicate anything. He throws all of his pitches where they should be thrown to minimize the amount of hard contact he will get against them. Let's just, for example, righties at the plate, okay? He throws sinkers low and away. He doesn't try to throw them. He doesn't try to front door them. He doesn't do any of that. He throws it low and away. When he throws his changeup, he throws it low and away. His curveball is always at the bottom of the zone, or it's, most of the time at the bottom of the zone. His four-seam fastball is always at the top, and his cutter is always in, right? So this is what he does. He just goes, I know that these pitches, when I throw this pitch here, it is really hard for you to hit it hard. And he's doing a great job. His command is great. His stuff is great. His batting average against is wildly low. And he's really fun to watch. The other side, unfortunately, Hendricks, I watched a few of his starts this year, and he just doesn't feel as comfortable with the fastball anymore. That was kind of always his thing. He had this fastball. He could really backdoor his sinker to righties and just steal strikes over and over again. And then the changeup would really work off of that. This year, he's throwing like over 50% changeups, and he's really depending on that pitch to be the savior for him. And it just hasn't worked out that way. So it'll be interesting to see when he goes to the bullpen how he's going to be used, because is he just going to go there to be a long reliever? Because that seems like it's just a huge bummer of a role degradation from a guy who's had such a great career and played for so long, and had this incredible, unique skill set that we hadn't, you just don't see very often anymore these days. Real bummer to see, but I'm interested to see what'll happen from now on with him.
Yeah, I hope he turns the corner. I'm a little worried that he might not even get the chance because some of the Cubs pitchers are starting to get healthy. And when that happens, then you're dealing with a numbers game. And if you don't have a defined role, it's tough. I mean, if you're throwing 88 or 89 out of the bullpen, there's not a lot of guys. Like we mentioned Josh Hader being 1 of 1.
Yeah.
Kyle Hendricks might be 1 of 1.
He'd be 1 of 1.
The Ranger Suarez stuff is fascinating to me, because all I could remember was during their run in 2022 was, man, is he going to get a chance to get through 5 innings in the playoffs?
Yeah.
And now he's just killing everybody. Yeah. By the way, the only other AL/NL pitchers to do what he has done since earned runs became an official stat in 1912 are Hall of Famer Walter Johnson and Cy Falkenberg.
Ooh, classic
names. In 1913. So we're talking about some sort of almost uncharted territory. Really cool to see, and a huge reason why that Philly staff has been the best in baseball through the first 2 months. All right, speaking of Philly, we got an update on the Bryce Harper promposal. We talked about it on yesterday's show that there was a kid who got him to go to his prospective date's door, knock on it. She went nuts. She hugged Harper. Then she hugged Jake, who was the young man. Well, we got much more on the story. The kid's name is Jake Portella. He apparently lives not far from Bryce Harper, decided to go knock on his door and say, hey, if there's any way you can help me, the girl I want to take to prom is a huge Phillies fan. Could you tape a video? Harper was like, okay, I'll take your email down. I'll get back to you. And as the kid's walking away, he's like, hey, what do you think if we walked over to her house right now and knocked on her door and asked, do you think that she would do it? He's like, let's go find out. Sure enough, we saw how it played out. Great photo of the three of them. That is so damn cool. My question to you is, if you lived in the neighborhood of an A-lister as a teenager, would you ever have the balls to knock on somebody's door and ask them for a favor like this?
Absolutely not. In no way, shape, or form would I have ever been able to do this. When I was like 8 and I had absolutely no fear, yes. But when I was a teenager, like high school age, there's no way. I would never have done that. And it's crazy to think about, but also really cool. Bryce Harper's a great guy. Like, he's a really nice guy. He's very intense on the field, but he's a really good person. And really just fun to see. Like, it's just classic, man. There's nothing better than a good promposal. And if you can get Bryce Harper to do it for you, like, absolutely.
We've seen guys go to proms before, like they get asked over social media, and I love that sort of stuff. So, Bryce Harper's not the only one. But first of all, I'm a little worried that some kid was able to just knock on Bryce Harper's door.
It must be a pretty safe neighborhood, I would guess.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't think I could ever do that. I mean, I would get nervous around. The closest I ever came to something fun was, I think I was like 11, maybe something like that. And we were at dinner, and you obviously have heard of the legendary comedian and entertainer Bob Hope.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Bob Hope was a Cleveland guy, and he was in town with a bunch of his buddies and having dinner. And so I was like, do you think I could ask him if they're playing golf? So he was a big golfer. It's like, do you think if I asked him if they're playing golf tomorrow, if they need a fourth? They're like, yeah, go for it. So I went up to his table. I said, hi, Mr. Hope. I'm sorry. My name is Chris Rose. Do you need a fourth for golf tomorrow? And he's like, oh, Sonny boy, thanks so much. We're already taken care of, blah, blah, blah. But he wasn't a total jerk, which was nice.
Yeah, that's really nice. I'm very happy. But I still got nervous when I was like playing Major League Baseball and would go like introduce myself to people that I was a fan of, And I was like, hi, I'm Steven. I remember I I went and talked to Dusty Baker one time. I saw him out and about in Pittsburgh when we were playing the Nationals, and I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, my name's Steven Brawl. I just want to introduce." I was in the major leagues for like 3 years at this point, and he looked at me like, "Yeah, I know who you are," and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool." Yeah, so I definitely, as a teenager, would not be walking up to Bryce Harper's door and asking him to do my promposal for me.
And Dusty, by the way, is the cool. He must have had a toothpick in at the time.
He did.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
He is the dude. Bryce Harper, great job. The only thing is, I don't know how to say the young lady's name. Her first name is Giulia. So I think it's Julia with a.
Yeah, I think it's
right?
Julia. That's what I would guess.
Yeah. Well, we hope to have a tremendous prom together. And you'll have that. I mean, they've got that story forever.
Cool.
Forever. It is awesome. Great hanging out with you as always, my friend.
You too.
You do a tremendous job. Keep up the great work on the Pirates. If you people have the baseball package and you're able to watch the Pirates pre and post game show, go watch my man. He does a remarkable job. And let's get a game or two in the booth.
Yeah. Hey, also, I just want to say, just for anybody who's interested, Jared Jones, Paul Skeens the next 2 days. So maybe put the Pirates game on. You'd be very, very entertained.
I said this, and I know you're not going to love it, but I think that they should nationally broadcast every Skeens start. Somebody should pick up your feed at the very least. If they don't want to come into town and do it, MLB Network should be putting it on every time.
Yeah, I mean, it is something to watch. It is insane. If you haven't seen it yet, it's so much better when you watch his whole game than when you just watch the highlights and see individual pitches, because you really see like just how dominant he can be. It's impressive.
You get those three guys, meaning Skeens, Jones, Keller, like you get them in a short series.
Yeah.
Look out.
As Paul Skeens would say, good luck.
Good. And good luck to you. I'm sure it won't be the last time we catch up with you, but we really, really always appreciate it, particularly on short notice. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. And Dan, thanks for not panicking when my audio cut out. You're the best.
That's right. He is our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke. Also, thanks to intern Tommy for helping us out with the editorial content today, as always. Trevor Plouffe expected back on Thursday's show, which we should have for you at its regularly scheduled time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. So for our dude, Steven Brault, I am Chris Rose. We will see you Thursday for Baseball Today, presented to you by Factor.